everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. I'm really excited because tonight we are joined by someone you might not have heard from for quite some time, former campaign manager for the Trump 2020 campaign, our good friend, Brad Parscale. Brad, welcome back to The Right View.
Hey, how are you, Lara? It's good to see you again. Good to talk to you. I mean, obviously I talk to you all the time, but good to talk to you on TV.
I know. Well, we're excited to have you back. And I feel like, look, you were such a huge player and you were on the scene constantly. People were constantly hearing from you, a year ago, less than a year ago. And now people are kind of wondering, where is Brad Parscale? What are you doing? Obviously, you're very busy. You've got phones ringing, things going on. What are you up to these days? And I want people to know that you're still very much involved with former President Donald Trump. Tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, so especially since what's kind of occurred over the last 4 months, we always knew, I even knew back in 2016 after we'd really used a lot of Silicon Valley technology and stuff. Once they found out that we knew how to use it, that we could use it more effectively than them, that we had more supporters out there than they did on these platforms, I knew that they would start this cancel culture. I told you that 4 years ago and said, look, it's only a matter of time. We have to build the 2020 campaign differently. A lot of people question that, but now it makes a lot of sense. If COVID wasn't there, we would have needed it because one plan they always had was to shut us off the internet. And as you've seen, they've cut and tried to wipe the president's voiceover off of everything, even that the message on your Instagram that they said and sent an email to the staff saying, hey, we're not even going to allow his voice to be in a recording on your show. I mean, that's just how ridiculous this cancel culture has gotten. So since then, I've really spent the last 4 months getting back to my roots of really getting back to technical programming and building software that allow Republicans across this country, including President Trump, to get back online, to actually start building tools and tech that don't rely on companies like Salesforce and Facebook and Campaign Monitor. So as you can see the hat I'm wearing, that company is called Campaign Nucleus. It's gotten a lot of attention lately. We've written out now a platform that's now operational. This week, we're going to see big announcements from the president, of new Campaign Nucleus tools coming online. We're now not going to rely on them anymore. And I'm going to provide the entire Republican Party, everybody center right in this country, including organizations and nonprofits, a platform where they don't need anybody in the tech industry, that I won't cancel them. And they'll have the rights to do everything that we see from all those left companies, but have a platform that's more affordable, that doesn't take our money and take it to the liberal causes. And if people don't know this, they charged almost the Republican Party $2 billion in advertising, and they took a majority of their profits, almost $1 billion of that, and gave it right back to C3s and C4s to unseat Republicans and unseat President Trump. So they were using their own money against him, and we have to stop this cycle.
Yeah, well, I appreciate so much of what you just said. And you're right. I really think that had it not been for really the masterful way that Donald Trump and thanks to you, Donald Trump used the social media platforms that he had, mostly Facebook, we might not be in the place where we are right now. I think they saw how it really benefited his campaign in 2016 and allowed him to reach so many more people, although the media, of course, was out for him and trying to suppress him at every turn. Donald Trump surpassed all of them. He went around them and said, I'm going to go on Facebook, thanks to you. But what you said is so accurate. It's why they are doing the things that they're doing now. And even last week, you sort of just alluded to this. I did an interview with my father-in-law, and it got removed immediately from Facebook. I think they allowed it to stay on there for like 18 minutes. But I want to get your take on this because it's making conservatives, I think, very, very uncomfortable. This is probably, Brad, only the beginning of what's to come, right?
Well, I'll tell you, a very wise person years ago told me there's two perfect times to plant a forest, 100 years ago and today. So we have a chance right now, and there's an opportunity. The forest has been wiped out, the previous one that had been built. Right. And so what we need to do right now is build our new forest, one that they can't cut down in a way. What I mean by that is we need to lay our own infrastructure. I hate to say this, have given us a gift to actually see that this is not the way we're going to progress our country forward. We can't let a small group of progressives, if you really look at the data, less than 15% of the American people believe in these highly progressive ways they want to take our country, from this part of people, which they're $1 billion and multi-billion-dollar companies and living in San Francisco and think they actually understand the rest of this country. And so what I believe is that we need to start building products that are conservative based, that have the same kind of capabilities, so that money that multi-billions of dollars we raise from conservatives across the country, which are the majority of Americans, aren't going into these progressive companies and completely used back to destroy us. And that's what's happened. And they've out-teched us. They planted a force that we didn't do. And we've only started to really do that, Lara, since you and I met, really 16, where I walked into the Trump campaign. I was one of the very first people I sat down. I asked some really important Republicans, what are the tools we use? And they said, well, we don't have any. We use their tools if we can, and we don't have anything. We use email and phone calls, and we spend billions of dollars on TV, and we just hope people show up. And I said, this has got to change. We changed that in 16 with Facebook by bringing out the rule vote in record numbers. Facebook recognized that. Silicon Valley recognized that and said, we're not going to let you advertise to rural voters anymore.
Yeah, well, by the way, I've known you since far before 2016.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll point that out, but we didn't really work together until then. I want to ask you this because I think it's so important that conservatives have a chance at growing their presence in Silicon Valley and in the tech space, because Brad, we have to stop the partisan politics. I mean, it should not. It really feels like our rights are being infringed upon. We have to do something as conservatives to basically take our freedoms back, because all of these tech platforms hide behind the idea, that they're not having to follow the same rules as the mainstream media outlets, that they're private companies, and because of that, they don't have to follow these same rules. What can we do? I mean, do you think we actually have an opportunity? We've heard that Donald Trump might have his own social media platform. Do you think there is an opportunity, though, for us to fight back as conservatives?
Yeah, I mean, considerably. I mean, look, here's the thing is, you take the last 3-4 cycles, soft money organizations have come in and donors have spent over $1 billion buying TV ads. I was talking to a donor group yesterday. If you would have taken one weekend of one cycle of just literally 3 days of advertising and spent that in tech, we wouldn't be in this situation. That's how little bit of money they haven't done. And so the donor pool and the people of America that want to support conservatives, I think, are recognizing that we need to build this. And I think we can completely build it. Do we have the talent? Yes. Do we have the people? Yes. It's just time now. It's not something you can just flip a switch tomorrow and have up, but it is an investment. Luckily, I recognized this back in 2016 that we were technically behind. So I've been quietly for 5 years, been writing Nucleus and building an entire infrastructure for an automated ecosystem that eventually will have artificial intelligence, which helps build down ticket races, even down to city council people, to help be like a campaign manager in a box. Because if we're really going to take this country back, it's not winning presidencies, it's winning state legislators, state Senate seats, city council seats, actually changing state laws that affect our federal elections. And I think we see that what's happening in Georgia right now. But the way we keep that is helping these down ticket races win. And the big tech Silicon Valley companies aren't looking to building tech to help politics. They're helping to make money, and they're being utilized. But if we build tools who are particularly designed to help win elections, the way you win elections, we have an advantage here. And again, like I said earlier, we're finally planting these seeds because we were forced to. They haven't been forced to build that kind of tools.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have really a huge opportunity here. And had we stayed in the space that we were in 2016, had it been anybody, by the way, other than Donald Trump, I'm terrified to think how far behind we as conservatives might be right now. And, they've done everything except completely take over on the left. They're pushing their radical far left ideology on people all over the country. You just alluded to what's going on in Georgia right now. It is so insane to see a Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, Delta, all these major companies cave to the woke nonsense. These people don't even understand what they're talking about down in Georgia. But I think we have to be smart and we have to outplay the Democrats, because we know that they're aided by the media and especially by big tech. Look, Brad, we know what big tech did to help Joe Biden in the last election. You remember how they tried to censor the New York Post and their bombshell story about Hunter Biden and how he's compromised by foreign governments like China, across all of social media. It is so outrageous that this was allowed to happen. We also saw what crooked Democrats did in the 2020 election in several states to influence the election with last-minute changes to our election process. So you're right, we've got to get all the way down to the state legislatures and make sure this thing never happens again. So I think my question for you is less about tech and more about elections in general. As a former campaign manager for a presidential election, what do you think that Republicans need to do to improve election integrity for the next presidential election, for even sooner, like the midterms in 2022? Because, Brad, we've got to fix that problem. Otherwise, we know what the Democrats are trying to do with H.R. 1. We know what they are trying to do all across the country to rig elections for the future.
So, yes, that's a very good question. So one part of this is you got tech, like we were discussing, which is a long-term problem that we need to fix. It's going to get fixed more and more every cycle, the more they cancel. It's because conservatives and Republicans are natural entrepreneurs and will build the tech. I'm not worried about that. I think when you get into election integrity and understanding what needs to happen, I think we have an educational problem and a fact versus fiction problem. So two things are occurring. The media, and one thing I learned of being a campaign manager for over 897 days or whatever it was.
Not that you kept track.
No, yes, the longest in American history, is I recognize that when you have 9/10 of the story true and 1/10 false, the media then will say this is fake news because the 1/10. So one of the things that occurred after Trump's November 3rd results, and there started to become inconsistencies and problems in states like Pennsylvania. But one fact maybe that 400,000 more people voted in one county ends up being fiction. When that's sold in the package, what happens, the media says, see, they're lying, this is all BS. So a couple of things need to occur. One is, I really do think there needs to be an indexing of what really happened, and a ability to actually say, here are the 85 pieces of legislation currently on the table. Here are the 96 lawsuits ready to go through. Here's what needs to occur. Here's a scoring of how well it's going. Here's an aggregation of the content around it. And so there's a clear understanding from the party holistically what needs to occur. Secondarily, I think there needs to be an education to the state legislators. If I call the average state legislator in most states and say, do you know how you could help me win in a federal election as a campaign manager for president? They would say, no, I don't know what to do. You know, they're state legislators. They're not Jim Jordans and these other guys that are big names on Fox News all day. These guys have second jobs sometimes. To states like Texas, they come every 2 years. They meet for some months, and they need to pass legislation that helps. There needs to be a portion of the Republican Party that understands and trains, creates videos, understanding content, websites they can go to and say, if we want a better law in Pennsylvania, I'll give you the best myth of all of them that I hear all the time. And yesterday I was speaking to some donors and they were like, they gave me the crooked head after it. I said, mail-in voting is not bad for Republicans. Previously, we would win those states because we out-organized the Democrats. The problem is the hands law. How many hands can touch the mail-in vote before it gets there? The difference is Republicans are actually better at voter ID, single vote, mail-in voting. It's actually an improvement for us because we tend to have older voters who don't want to stand in line for 4 hours. And we can organize better and chase them to make sure they send in the ballot. The problem is with the multi-hands. Multi-hands means that one person can go to one part of the building and get 50 people's things, and we don't really know who signed them or not. What's called the two hands or multiple hands rules. These states, when I kept telling them we should not complain as a party against mail-in voting, we should completely embrace it and say, oh, this is better for COVID, but at the same time say every person should only have their right to send in their own ballot. Right. Then our organizational system would have overcome the Democrats. The problem was, again, fact versus fiction, we're fighting the fiction. And that's the problem. And that's when we jump to conclusions too much. And it's assumed it's better for us to show up with a ballot box, which wasn't true. What we did is we ended up creating a backlog of people who all had to vote on one day. We cut down our own early voting. And if I would have done it all over, again, I would have pushed even harder publicly to say, no, mail-in voting is good. Florida is the perfect example. Look at the Florida voter laws. Mail-in voting, large percentage, single hand vote, and we won in large numbers. You start going to states like Pennsylvania, some of these states that changed the laws real quick, Nevada, multi-hand, automatic ballots. There you got problems. And so there is a separation between fact and fiction, what we actually is fair, and there's nothing wrong with mail-in voting. We should have people vote. But having a person collect 50 ballots or 500 ballots or 5,000 ballots, I think in some cases 50,000 ballots and showing up with them is the problem in my opinion.
Yeah, well, also known as ballot harvesting, which is
Ballot
illegal.
harvesting.
It's actually illegal in a lot of states.
But
Well,
this
look,
time they made it okay in some states, and that was the
right.
problem, right? And sometimes maybe it's just two hands, like, oh, I brought this for somebody else because it's signed. Those kinds of things are dirty. And I think that smart mail-in voting is not bad for the Republicans.
Well, listen, Brad, all we want is for the process to be fair and transparent. And if there's a way that you can guarantee with mail-in voting that the person who actually cast a ballot there and send it in the mail is the person they say they are, is a legal registered voter, is a legal citizen of the United States, and has the right to vote, then that's great. And they got their one vote and it's only counted one time. That's great. I think there's some myth out there that is being pushed by the liberal media that somehow Republicans want to make it a very murky process. It is quite the opposite. We want to know that there's transparency. We want to know that everything is upfront and fair. And by the way, asking for identification when you go to vote is not a racist idea. It is a completely legitimate and normal idea. I think it's actually insulting to suggest that somehow minorities don't have the ability to get an ID. When you need an ID, Brad, to fly somewhere, when you need an ID to buy something with a credit card, when you need an ID to buy alcohol. I mean, so many instances where you need IDs, and somehow we're crazy and bigoted for thinking that people should have ID so that you know they're the person they say they are to vote.
So legal immigration.
I think all people want is transparency and a fair election process, because that is not what we got in 2020. It was really murky. It was really confusing. People were very frustrated with that election. So look, I think you are actually doing so much that will hopefully help keep things transparent and make people more comfortable with our election processes in the future. And I think that is vital to the future of America, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the other things I've started in the last few months is called the American Greatness Fund. And one of our first projects is the Election Integrity Project. We've raised several $100,000 already, looking to raise several $100,000 more. We've already brought on a few really key hires. We've started to form a board with some important people that we'll announce later. I don't want to put on there yet and are announced yet. But the whole idea is, until we actually really document the problem and really get our hands wrapped around everything that needs to get done, you can't go fight a war and the soldiers just go run around in circles. You have to have a battle plan. You need to understand who the enemy is and where the fight is. And so one of the things I always said in business, which I said when I came to politics, and which now I'm saying in the post-Trump presidency, is if you don't spend time building the data and understanding your map and your direction arrows, you're just fighting an enemy you can't see, and you're attacking where places that don't matter. It's like spending $1 of advertising on a person that's voted the last 20 Democrat primaries to try to get them to vote for Republican. They should not be in your universe audience. And this is how things in politics used to occur beforehand. Maybe not that blatantly, but that targeted needs to happen. And so what I'm trying to do with the Election Integrity Project is trying to really bring a transparency, fact versus fiction, and really Trump was not wrong that things were wacky out there. I want to stay away from the words of criminal in this at this point, but because I don't like to be accusations first, but he's not wrong. I mean, the fact in Pennsylvania, the night of the election, you have a scoreboard to kind of show you how many more votes need to come in, and then you got all these days still to go find them. It's just wrong. The fact is, in 2020, we know every year, every election cycle, we know less and less that night who won or lost. I mean, I woke up in 1984, or that day, 2 hours after the election, we knew Reagan won, right? Now in 2020, all these years later, almost nearly 40 years later, we can't finish an election on the same night. I mean, what's funny is states like Florida and Ohio, which are huge states, they knew right away. And then Pennsylvania and Arizona, all of a sudden we just have these run-ons. We really don't know what's going on. Look, there's something wacky out there, but it's got to be documented. It's got to be documented properly. And I'm happy to help raise money. I talked to the president about it, and he's supportive of it. He knows that we need to do this. He knows that if he wants to run again in 2024, he needs this integrity to be, better. It can't be stolen from him again. And I fear that if he announced again, all hell's going to break loose. And and I think if we don't have our ducks in a row and ready to fight the fight and make sure that we have a fair election, it'll be even worse than last time.
Well, they're certainly doing everything they can to prevent him, Brad, from announcing a run in 24.
Well, they can't stop me.
Yeah, they're not allowing him on so many social media outlets. They want people to forget about Donald Trump. Just move on with your lives. I hate to tell them Donald Trump is going nowhere, so they ought to get used to it, right?
Well, Laura, one of the big things about what I've done, in which I've gotten thousands of emails, which, back to my daily death threats and I hate you messages,
Oh, lovely.
is that I've got Trump back online now. Nucleus is providing him a way of talking to the press every day. We're going to have now, starting, this week, have him talking to tens of millions of his supporters. We're going to have a new product coming that allows people to follow with push notifications, his messaging. We're going to go around all of it. We have him back with his shop, coming back online and selling gear. We have everything they wanted to get rid of. I've brought back. It wasn't a matter of whether we could. It's just a matter of time and how many keystrokes we get on our keyboards to get them back online. But we learned a valuable lesson to never trust them again. So every week we're going to push Trump more and more back out there. And they aren't this time. There's no cancel button for them. They've actually created a culture now where we understand that they are completely and will use their technology and their businesses to fight. And I have to say one thing about what we were talking about Georgia. I think it's funny they move it from Georgia to Colorado, where Colorado actually has tougher voter ID laws than Georgia.
Right.
So the irony of the whole thing is ridiculous. It's just these guys all trying to win PR fights and sell more gear and, these kind of movements. But either way, they're not going to get Trump offline. I haven't gone anywhere. I still am a huge supporter of this family. I talked to your husband, I think, 3 times today.
Oh.
I continue to support, the Trump family. It was a rough 5 years with all the fake media against myself. What's funny is they never cut one fake story about me, and every one of them ended up being fake. They let them onslaught it all day, every day. I know you saw it like nothing before. I became the first consultant in American history to have paid TV commercials run against them to try to hurt me and my family. They knew that I had the talent and knew how to help Trump win. And their whole goal was to destroy my life and destroy everybody's life around me, including my families, my kids, friends, people, my exes, everybody, and anyone they could destroy to try to destroy me, because they knew that as long as I was there, do it. And this time I'm going to put myself in a position. I'm going to out-tech them now so much that if Trump runs again, they can't even cancel me now. They can't cancel any of it, and that's what my hope is. And I think that, and that's my mission currently. And I've got a lot of support, some financial support, and I'm pretty excited about it. And I think that if the president decides to run in 2024, he'll have every tool he needs. It's all going to be about what he says and what he does and his effort to go win.
Well, gosh, we love to hear that, Brad. And look, I want to say thank you, because not only have you been by our family side throughout everything political, but you've always been a great friend. And we so appreciate you coming on today. And I think your message is a good one for people to hear out there. Listen, it is very hard sometimes to speak up and speak out when you know that what you feel in your heart is true. But they've tried every way to cancel you. They've tried every way to cancel all of us. But you know what? We keep pushing on. And that is what every single American out there that loves this country has to do from today and forever, because we cannot fall to the woke liberal media. We cannot fall for all these identity politics, for the virtue signaling, all of this stuff. We got to stand up and stand strong, say we love our country, and you're not going to bully us into submission. So I want to say thank you for continuing on. I think what you're doing is absolutely vital to the future of America, to the future of the conservative movement in America. So keep doing what you're doing. We're going to check back in with you. I know you're going to have a lot of big announcements in the coming months. So congratulations on everything, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Laura, and congratulations on all your recent stuff. Also, it's nice to see you on TV more, and you were meant to be on TV. Where I don't know how you do it. I'll never want to do it again, but I like being behind my computer. So I'm glad you're out there fighting, and I like watching you all the time. So thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Well, we got you on the show today, so thanks for joining us, Brad. And to everybody at home, thank you as always. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.